Welcome to the Australian Progressive. I'm Keith Pearce, and today I'm going to talk about the real reason for the high cost of electrical power in Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. Now, a lot of right-wing politicians and right-wing media outlets will tell you that's because of the introduction of so many renewables. It's not. In a word, privatisation is the cause of the high cost of power. And before I demonstrate how privatisation has created the high cost of power in those states, if you decide you like this video and you think this is information other people should have, then share the video with your friends. Hit the like button, subscribe. I need subscriptions. This is a very, very new channel. I don't have any subscriptions yet, so the more subscriptions I can get, the more the algorithms will point in my direction and the more chance I'll get of having people watch my future talks. And I hope my future talks are as interesting as this one. Okay, so why has privatisation caused the price of power to go up? Well, before we get to that, let's talk about the way in which right-wing media outlets and right-wing politicians try to lead you to believe that renewables is the cause. And what I'll do is I'll use, as a demonstration, I'll use a show that was on Sky called The True Cost of Net Zero, hosted by Chris Ullman. Now, they used what I can see to be facts. I can't pick anything in their facts that is wrong, but the way they present the facts is a setup to mislead you to believing that renewables are the cause. And they do such things as they say, renewables are being found wanting. So that leaves you with the impression, renewables are being found wanting. The true cost of net zero is because renewables are found wanting. And why have they been found wanting? Well, the reason they reckon they've been found wanting is because the sun doesn't shine at night. Who would have guessed? The wind doesn't blow all the time. I'm pretty sure we knew all of that. And renewables need expensive backup. Now, that's the damning side of renewables. They need expensive backup. So what they're trying to put in your mind is that you shouldn't use cheap energy when it's available, because when it's not available, you have to use expensive backup. And what you should do instead is use the expensive backup all of the time. Now, that's pretty much nonsense. Then they go on and tell you that way back in the past, Australia had amongst the lowest cost electricity in the world, and now we're amongst the highest cost of electricity in the world. And because the program is called The Real Cost of Net Zero, they give you that fact to try and convince you that renewables have caused the price of electricity to go up in Australia, to go from a low-cost power country to a high-cost power country. What they didn't tell you is that when Australia was a low-cost power country, the power was provided by the government. Then we had privatisation, and now we're amongst the highest cost in the world. See the link? Privatisation. Okay, so how does privatisation cause the price of power to go up? Well, what it does is it's created a monopoly. And that monopoly is the national energy market. And the national energy market buys the power off the energy producers and on sells to the energy suppliers, the distributors that sell to you. And how they do that, according to Chris Ullman, and I've checked up on this particular fact because I thought it was important, the way they do it is they do it in 5-minute blocks, and they do it on the basis of price bidding. So the people that bid the lowest, their power's taken up first. And once the low cost power is taken up, they go on to the next highest and the next highest and so on until they've filled the amount that they need to balance the output for that particular 5-minute block. But here's the rub. Everybody gets paid the highest price. Now, by doing that, by having an auction system where everybody ends up with the highest price, they're giving away control of their input costs. Now, I understand the issue of not being able to control your input costs. At one stage, I was on the board of a company that through not its own fault, through things outside of its control, could not control its input costs. And despite the fact that our company was more efficient and had better marketing than its competitors, the fact that we could not control our input costs ended up putting us down the gurgler when the SARS virus killed our markets. So if you can't control your input costs, you are very vulnerable. Except when you're like the national energy market, you have a monopoly situation where people have to buy from you so they can pass their inefficiency or incompetency, whichever way you want to look at it, on to you, the consumer, through higher power price. And it's not just your power bill that goes up. Everything goes up. When you go to fill your car up at the service station, they've got electric pumps. The price of that electricity goes up, the price of your fuel goes up. When you go to the supermarket to buy your groceries, they've got all those lights, they've got the machines, electrical machines at the front to do your checkouts. They've got freezers and cool rooms. All of that uses electricity. When the electricity price goes up, they pass that on to you, the customer, through increased food prices. So it's extremely important to keep electricity prices down. Now, how badly does this auction system affect the cost of electricity? Well, I've done a bit of maths on it, and I'm not a mathematician, I'm a fisherman, so if you want to check up on me, go ahead, and if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Now, they buy, the national energy market buys electricity in megawatt hours. So what we're going to do is say we'll buy 100 megawatt hours. And the reason for 100 megawatt hours is it's easy to break down in percentages. Now, before we start doing that, we need to get a costing in. Now, Chris Ullman, in his show, the cost of, or the real cost of net zero, gave us some input costs. He said solar and wind, that's renewables, are the cheapest input. He didn't put a price on that. He said the next highest was brown coal, which prices itself at $12 a megawatt hour. The next one up is black coal at $110 a megawatt hour. Hydro comes in at $145 a megawatt hour, and gas at $185 a megawatt hour. So let's say we're going to buy 100 megawatt hours, and the situation is that renewables, we don't know what their cost is, so we'll just call them $12, the same as brown coal. So renewables, wind and solar and brown coal give us 80% of that requirement, 80%, which is, from what I've seen, about what they do. Then black coal comes in and that gives another 10%. We're now up to 90%. Hydro doesn't give us much, so I say 5%. And the last 5% is gas, which is $185 a megawatt hour. So 100 megawatt hours, because remember, they all get paid the highest price. So the national energy market now pays $185 to everybody. For 100 megawatt hours is $18,500. But if you go back and do the maths and say, well, what is the 80% by $12 plus the 10% by $110 and the 5% by $145 and the 5% by $185, and you come up with a figure of $3,710. So the national energy market is paying $18,500 to buy $3,710 worth of electricity. So now you're starting to get a bit of an idea as to why your energy bills are what they are. But it's worse than that, because when you get times of very, very high demand, because it's a monopoly situation, the national energy market can get screwed by the energy companies. And when I went on to Google and AI and asked the questions, and I can't guarantee because I'm not sure Google and AI are all that accurate, but what it told me was that the highest price ever that the national energy market paid for 5 minutes of electricity was $13,100 a megawatt hour. So in our scenario, that would mean they would pay $1,310,000 for less than $5,000 worth of electricity. So if you want your electricity price to go down, then what needs to happen is the national energy market needs to be scrapped and replaced with a government body that will work on the basis of supply contracts. That is, if a supplier is prepared to supply its product at $12 a megawatt hour, that's what they get paid, because they've already got their profit built into that. So what the supply contract situation do is say, okay, so that we know the bare minimum of what power would be required at any time. So if you could lock in renewables and brown coal at the moment, renewables permanently once brown coal's gone, you could lock up that amount at the set price. So you've got a supply contract. We will take all of your electricity up to this amount for that price. Then, for those that aren't in that, which would be the black coal, the hydro, the gas, etc., you pay them a standby fee. And you calculate the standby fee on the basis of when they do come in, what the cost of their power is going to be and how much you think you would end up using, so that at the end of the day, the companies can make a fair and reasonable profit. The idea is not to screw the companies. The idea is to stop the companies from screwing the public. So you could use the supply contracts to do that. And don't let anybody tell you you can't use supply contracts, because my understanding, and I don't live in the eastern states, I live in Western Australia, and I've got rooftop solar, and I've got an agreement with the energy company that when they buy off my surplus, it is a set price. It doesn't change. That's a supply contract. And my understanding is rooftop solar in the eastern states works on the same principle. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. But if that's true, that it comes in at a set rate, then they already have supply contracts. So there's no reason that they can't do supply contracts for companies if they can do it for rooftop solar. So how do you get the change? Well, we've got an election coming and you've got to vote. So what you need to do is look at who you think is going to make the change and ring them up and ask them who's going to make the change, and vote for the party or the politician that is going to do something to change the system so that the corporate rip-offs that the monopoly is creating stops, and that the benefits of cheap renewables is passed on to the consumer. So, who do you look at? Well, I wouldn't waste my time with the Liberals. They are wedded to nuclear, and not because nuclear is going to help with energy. Their wedding to nuclear has got nothing to do with energy. It's all to do with uranium mining. If they can con Australia into accepting nuclear power plants, then the argument to restrict uranium mining in Australia is out the window, and that the mining magnates like Gina Hancock and others who fund the Liberal Party will be able to go to town and make a lot of money. So that's what the Liberals are about. The Nationals seem to be more a coal mining party than a farmers' party these days. So I think that they'll probably want to stick with coal. That leaves Labor, the Greens and the Teals. So put a bit of pressure on Labor, the Greens and the Teals. Get them to accept that it needs to be a change and that they will make that change. And if they do that, give them your vote and get the change made. Because if you can get the change from this ridiculous auction model that gives away the input cost control and change it to a supply contract model which guarantees control of the input costs, then electricity prices will come down. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your mates. Like I said, hit the subscribe button. I need subscribers. Hit the like button and hit the notification so that you get further videos. And until I make another video, take care and be safe.